Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 97 of Coach Bennett's podcast, and I believe this is going to be entitled How to Schedule Your Runs, but I'm not quite sure because that just seems like a pretty boring title. I will say it's not a boring subject. It's not. It may be a boring title, but it's not a boring subject. And if you think it's a boring subject, I'll tell you this. It's a pretty hot topic right now because I've been asked no less than 4 separate times from people how to schedule their runs in the last 24 hours. That's right. I had a couple of other options for what we were going to talk about, but one of them was just going to be how to keep your running fresh, which I thought was going to be a fun one. But this one, I figured, don't get in the way of what life is telling you, and life right now is telling you to do a podcast on how to schedule your runs. And I just do what life tells me most of the time, all right? So that's what this is going to be. Episode 97, how to schedule your runs. I say we just jump right into it. Shall we? I think we shall, because if we don't, then I'm going to start talking about the weather and the sun finally busting through, and it's been a long winter just emotionally, and, just with this world is just wild. Oh, so we're just going to get into it. All right, now, let's first start with the foundational stuff, right? Let's take into account some of the considerations that we should be thinking about when we're trying to schedule our runs. And this could be for the next week. It could be for the next month. And when I was writing training plans for athletes and for teams, I started at the end of the season. So sometimes the training plans were very rough and general, but they were sometimes 3-4 months long, which if you're writing a training plan that's 3 or 4 months long, you need a lot of flexibility because there's going to be a lot of adjusting. But here's the thing. If you're writing a training plan for a week, there still needs to be flexibility, okay? And it should show up as you're making the training plan for the week. You should be flexible with the days right off the bat. Don't lock into Tuesday and Thursdays have to be speed runs, Saturday or Sunday has to be a long run. No, it doesn't need to be like that unless, of course, there's a competition, a race that is scheduled and set. Now, that means you're going to have to work around that, but that would also be a consideration that you're taking into account. So what I'm saying, start off by having considerations. I mean considerations like life. Life is a consideration because you have things that are going on in your life. It might be nice to say, Tuesday I'm going to do a speed workout. It's going to be intervals on the track. And Thursday I'm going to do another speed run. It's going to be a tempo run. But guess what? Life says, actually, you're going to have to work late on Tuesday. And on Thursday, you've got your kid's baseball game, or you've got your daughter's tennis match, and you're not going to be able to do those things on those days. Life has a part in your training plan, and you can fight against it, but that's a lot of wasted energy. The best thing to do is just take into account what you've got going on in your life. And that isn't just scheduling around your life. It's also taking into account what your life is doing in terms of energy output you need to live that life you're living. Like I said, Tuesday, you're working late. Now, okay, that may mean you don't have the time to do a workout on Tuesday, but you also need to take into account working late, maybe taking more energy out of you than you're used to having taken out of you. So you're going to have to make some adjustments, which means maybe you're not doing the workout on Wednesday. You're not bumping it a day forward. You may be bumping it a day earlier because you know that not only are you not going to be able to do a speed run on Tuesday, you're also going to be tired on Wednesday. and you don't want to head into the speed run more fatigued than you normally would be, which would hopefully be not very fatigued. So these are some of the things you want to take into account. So life and work, the schedule at both of those, the commitments that you've got to both of those, life and work, but also how taxing life and work are going to be during the week. All this is just sitting down for a little while and looking ahead. And what you're doing is you're using your earned wisdom from living this life to just factor in, hey, normally when I have a day at school like I'm going to have on Tuesday, or a day at work like I'm going to have on Thursday, this is how I typically feel. All right. And there are things you can do to mitigate some of these things. Like if you know, hey, Tuesdays usually when I work late are really exhausting. And part of that is because my meal planning is thrown off. I get out of there late. So I'm usually picking up something that I'd rather not eat on the way home. Well, maybe one of the things that you do while you're scheduling your runs is you schedule some of the things in your life that will help you have better runs. So maybe it is scheduling and planning for your meals, that fuel intake on those days where it typically gets a little haywire and could be improved upon. That's one of the best parts, I think, about actually doing exercises like this is you find a ton of weaknesses. You find a ton of opportunities for betterment. You find a ton of places where you can say, hey, here is an opportunity, a chance, the potential to do something different. And by different, in this case, I mean better. So what you may be unearthing is, yeah, I can't work out on Tuesday, but there are a few things I can do differently on Tuesday to make Wednesday that much better. So yes, maybe you have to adjust the speed run, but you are now adjusting certain things on Tuesday that's just going to make your running better. And I'll tell you what, most of the things that you do that lead to better running lead to better living. So what are some other considerations? All right, weather. You hear me talk about this all the time. I love looking at the weather. Part of that's because I'm just an old man and I love looking at the weather, and that's what we do. We like, looking at the weather. We like commenting on traffic when we're in it. We like reading signs on the side of the road for no apparent reason. We read them, but we say it out loud. I mean, it's okay to read the signs on the road and just keep it to yourself. But if you notice, like older guys, we start to read signs out loud. Like, oh, Bob's Snack Shack. Like, what are you, why are you telling everybody? Everyone can see. Everyone can read. Why are you telling Bob's Snack Shack? Oh, Wichita, 40 miles. We're not going to Wichita. We see the sign. You don't have to keep reading the signs. And I know this, and I can't stop it. It's got to be something biological or in our DNA. I don't know. Maybe cavemen were just walking around and we were just tree, rock, river, and everyone around the idiot caveman was like, dude, you've got to shut up. You just have to shut up. So anyway, weather. That's what I was talking about before I got off on my ramble. Weather. Check out the weather, because the weather has to be taken into consideration. If there is a situation where the weather is extreme, or if the weather is going to, hamper or hinder what you're trying to do to an extent where it might make sense to change the day, or maybe just change what time of day you're doing it, take that into account. If you have the flexibility, take advantage of the flexibility. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to scheduling, you often have the flexibility. If you're on a team, then guess what? You're going to be working through the coach, and that flexibility that the coach comes up with is going to be based on the team as a whole. But if you're running mostly on your own or with a smaller group of athletes, this is where you get together and you talk and you say, we're set to do the long run on Saturday at 9 a.m., but at 9 a.m. it's already going to be 80 degrees and humid. That's 80 degrees Fahrenheit and humid. By the time we finish the long run, well, you may have to start at 7 and be finishing at 9. And all it is, it's a 2-hour adjustment, which means you're going to want to adjust also what you're doing Friday night. You're going to adjust when you're waking up on Saturday morning, how you're eating, how you're hydrating, things like that. That's fine, because what that's going to lead to is a better long run. If you think, well, we always start at 9. That's fine. And there are some people that are like, you know what? You don't need to adjust for the weather. I have, and I don't know what it is. I have to call you out. A lot of times it's dudes from Texas. I'm sorry, dudes from Texas, but you're the problem. You'll respond back to me when I say things like, it's not hardcore to run in dangerous conditions. I'll get like the quick little snippy reply, like, if you're not able to run in 100 degrees, you're not going to run. Like, buddy, relax, calm down. All right. Like, I know you're very tough. You run in 100 degrees. My point is, if you have the opportunity to run when it's 80, that's smarter. You're going to have a better run than if you're running when it's 100 degrees. I know you like to get your sweat on, but if you're actually trying to improve, you're going to be able to do more and have a greater benefit and not put yourself in such a deficit if you're running in better conditions, more conducive conditions to working out. So I know you think running on the sidewalk when it's 100 degrees looks cool. It doesn't. Not only does it not feel cool, it doesn't look cool. And if cool means getting better, you're not. You're not getting as good as you could have if you had just run at a different time of the day, which might mean later in the day when the sun sets. It might mean before the sun rises, which is the coolest part of the day. The point is, take into account these things and make adjustments if and when needed. And yes, sometimes the weather's just pretty brutal. And if it's still safe to run, but the conditions aren't great, okay, that's fine. I've run in those conditions too. I've also adjusted the plan, which means I may have adjusted the distance, the duration, the intensity, so I can get what I need to get out of the workout without having the workout take too much out of me. See, there's a give and take here. You give an effort, you get a gain, right? Absolutely. But the workout wants something too. They take as well. So that workout's going to say, okay, you give me that effort. Here's the gain. That's terrific. But that effort to gain that gain sometimes can far outweigh the gain. So what you have to do is make sure that when you're putting in an effort, it's not such a great effort in relation to what you're getting back. And when you have extreme weather conditions, that can occur. A lot of times people won't adjust the distance, duration, or intensity in extreme weather conditions, and as a result, they're giving out too much and not getting back as much as they think. So take into account considerations like weather when you're adjusting, when you're scheduling your training. All right? So we've had life, we've had work, we've had weather, and then there's other people. Take into consideration other people. Like I mentioned or alluded to earlier, teammates, right? So there's an opportunity potentially to do a workout with a group or without. You may have to be flexible in order to take advantage of working out with the group. And I believe that there are real benefits to working with people. Okay, so if you have the opportunity to have teammates, I think sometimes it makes sense to make those adjustments to be with them as opposed to running alone. There are great benefits to running alone, emotionally, spiritually, physically, absolutely. There are just as many benefits, if not more, to running with people. And if you're looking at your schedule and you're trying to figure out how you can take advantage of those teammates, those friends, those running partners in your life, that is another consideration to go into your schedule. So don't go in blind when you're making the schedule and not think about what's going on in your life, what's going on at work or school, what's going on with the weather, and what's going on with other people, family, friends, running partners, teammates. That's what you need to do. Those are some of the considerations you want to take into account when you're scheduling your training. Now, the other thing is an obvious one. What kind of runs are you doing? And there's a lot that goes into this. Some of it is basic scheduling, right? So let's just say you have 2 speed runs that you want to do over the course of the next 7 days. And we'll just use the example that I used earlier. You've got intervals one day and you've got a tempo run on another day. Well, you're looking at your schedule. You're obviously not going to put those back to back. So there are certain kind of like hard and fast rules that you're going to have in your 7 days that you're playing with, where, it would be nice if you could put runs anywhere, but you can't put runs anywhere. You don't want to put 2 speed runs back to back. You need recovery between those 2 speed runs. So the first thing you're going to do is obviously, I've got to separate some of these runs from each other. I mean, you can look at it as they don't play nice together, right? Like, that's just how it is. Like, if I have these 2 kids sitting next to each other in class, all they're going to do is laugh and talk. That's all they're going to do. They're not going to listen to anything I'm saying. Not that what I'm saying is actually any more beneficial than probably what they're saying. I mean, in fact, it's actually probably more beneficial. They're probably enjoying themselves or telling some stories. They're laughing. But the point is, they can't be sitting next to each other, right? They're causing problems, right? Whatever. So that's your 2 speed runs. They can't be sitting next to each other. They got to be separated. Do they have to be on the opposite side of the classrooms? Well, it depends. It depends on the intensity of the workouts. If you're doing a really, really hard interval workout and you're doing a pretty long, tough tempo run, then probably one day isn't enough. You might need 2 days between them. You might need 3 days between them. So that's what I want you to do, is I want you to think of those days that can't be next to each other first. You can have 2 easy runs next to each other. Why not? You can have an easy run next to a long run. You can have a long run and then an easy run. You can have a speed run and then an easy run. You can have an easy run, then a speed run. I'm not concerned about those. I'm concerned about the speed runs and the long run. Too intense of a speed run with a high volume or high duration, volume and duration or distance. Long run, I don't want them next to each other. If it's a very easy long run where maybe you're dropping down in distance, the intensity as a result is not going to be that high, okay, potentially. It's going to be dependent on how intense that speed run is, though. Normally a tempo run and a long run where you're backing off a little bit, they can work together. But that's another thing that you really need to be thinking about, is where are you spacing out some of these more high intensity workouts so they're not too close to each other, because you do want to take into account that one of the goals of a high intensity speed run is to recover from the high intensity speed run so you can take on another high intensity workout in the future. But the only way that you can do that is if you have planned the recovery between. So when you're looking at your schedule, all runs are not created the same, and all runs do not take the same amount of energy to do. Some are high intensity when it literally is speed, pace. Some of it is a higher intensity mentally than it is physically. So what I want you to do is look and see, what workouts am I doing this week, and how much distance do they need between each other? Okay? And in a way, the next question really is going to be a decision you're going to have to make. I think it's good even if you don't have to sacrifice a run or a workout here, but it is good to know what's the most important workout in your mind. Is it the intervals? Is it the tempo run? Is it the long run? Just again, hopefully you're not going to have to make a decision about one or the other, or we can only do 2 of the 3. But it is good to know the priority is going to be this day. And it doesn't always have to be the same type of workout. One week, the priority could be like, you know what, I just want to make sure I'm ready to do this long run really well. It could be for a whole host of different reasons. It could be, the interval workout this week is going to be high intensity. It's going to be fast. I really want to make sure I'm ready for that. Okay. It could be, I really need a good tempo just to build some confidence here. That's the one that I really want to nail this week. That's fine. It's personal. The point is that suddenly you got to look at that day a little bit differently. You're going to want to make sure that everything is kind of in service to that day. Now, it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice anything in some weeks. I think sacrifice gets a bad rap because I think it's kind of explained the wrong way, especially when it comes to sport. This is how I look at sacrifice in sports. Whatever you're giving up, you should be getting something better in return for what you've given up. A lot of times people look at sacrifice as, well, I'm sacrificing something and I'm not getting as much in return, and that's what's so noble. Hey, I get it. Just park that to the side. It's different in sports. Like people are like, well, you got to give up your Friday nights. But, well, I mean, calm down. You're not giving up your Friday nights. You're not like, going into a dark cave on Friday night. Maybe you can't go out late. Maybe you can't go out at all. But what do you get in return? I'm hoping the response to what you get in return is something that you consider far greater than a few hours on Friday night. Maybe it's the few hours of having a really great practice, a long run with your team, with your friends, with your running partners. You get to go on some great trails. You're building endurance. You're challenging yourself. You're having fun. You get to go out for brunch afterwards, whatever. The point is, that's pretty awesome. And the sacrifice is worth it if you realize how awesome that is, if you're deriving joy from that, if you feel like you're becoming a better version of yourself for that. So, yeah, you're giving up a Friday. You're sacrificing a Friday. You're gaining a kick-ass Saturday. So I think when you're looking at, okay, what do I have to sacrifice maybe in order for this most important day, if we want to just call it that, to be set up as the most important day, where you're most prepared for that day. So if that means, I want a little extra time between the intervals and the tempo runs, which I'm going to do on Tuesday and Thursday. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm probably going to do the intervals in the morning because I normally work out in the afternoon. And if I do it in the morning instead of the afternoon, that's going to be like 6-8 extra hours of recovery between that first workout and the tempo run. And the tempo run to me is the most important workout. That's what I'm talking about. So maybe you're going to be sacrificing, an easy morning where you're just getting up and having a coffee and chilling out, where you got to get up, you got to get some fluids in you, you got to get some fuel in you. You're going to have to wake up probably a little bit earlier, and you're going to be doing a workout. That's your morning. So it's not reading a book and having a coffee. It's actually working out. That's the sacrifice for having the best opportunity to nail the tempo run on Thursday afternoon. That's what I'm talking about. So that's the way I look at sacrifice anyway. So what's the most important run of the week is another thing I want you to be thinking about. And obviously what coincides with that is what runs surround that week now best. So the next thing to think about then would also be looking back a little bit at last week. Don't think that because now suddenly the calendar is flipped to Monday, that the previous 7 days, 14 days, 21 days don't matter. I think a lot of times people reset or like hit refresh like mentally on a Monday and like, well, last week's done. This is a new week. Yes, but also no. You're always bringing in part of last week and the week before that and the week before that with you into this new week. That's just what you're doing. Just like you bring Monday into Tuesday, well, you're bringing last Wednesday into this Monday too. Maybe not that much of last Wednesday, but some of it. And sometimes you're bringing a lot depending on what happened last Wednesday. So think about what happened last week to take into account where you're placing runs this week. So we're just going to use the same example. Normally you do Tuesday, Thursday speed runs, but last week was pretty hard. And the long run felt pretty difficult on Saturday. And maybe you don't feel like you're as recovered this week. So let's move that first workout from Tuesday to Wednesday. You're going to give yourself an additional day of recovery because of last week. That would be an easy move. And maybe that means now, you know what? You're going to have to move the next workout to Friday instead of Thursday. And maybe because of some of the shifts, you're going to back off the tempo a little so you can still do the long run on Saturday. And guess what? You're back on that Tuesday, Thursday schedule next week. The same goes for the following week. What's happening next week? And is there anything you can do this week to set yourself up really well for next week? You see, we have no problem moving things around sometimes in the week to set the week up really well. There's a reason why people think like, well, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, that's speed run, long run. And the reason why is because, well, Monday's an easy run, Wednesday's an easy run, Friday's an easy run, Sunday's an easy run. So we're already almost subconsciously setting ourselves up so we can have Monday bleed into Tuesday really well, bleed into Wednesday really well. The same thing goes for weeks in a training program. So when I'm putting together a training program, I'm not just thinking about the week we're in. I'm thinking about what did we do last week and how does this set us up for next week? And I'm trying to make it work in a way where they're all helping each other. Like each week is almost like a day of a week and how we structure that. So look back and look ahead, because there's probably going to be some considerations you're going to want to take into account, considering how last week went and how you're feeling at the start of this week and how you want to feel at the end of this week, so you can start next week the way you want to feel. Okay? All right. And be honest. I could have started with this at the very beginning. Just, you got to be honest. You really do. You got to be honest. Can you do it all? Not every week can you do what you're supposed to do. And you've probably heard me say, when you can't do the run you want to do the run you can do. It's the same thing when you're setting up a training schedule. Just be honest. You may have a lot going on in your life, and you may be a wildly successful person, but that doesn't mean you have to set yourself up for failure. You want to set yourself up for success. And a lot of success is dependent on that successful person just being honest. Maybe this is going to be a difficult week and you can still do it all. Great. But the same token, maybe this is going to be a really difficult week and you can't do it all. Okay, make adjustments, because the last thing you want to do is set yourself back, which can happen when we try to do too much. And that can also mess you up mentally, where you put yourself in a position to do something you can't do, then you don't do it, and you're coming from a place of really dishonesty, because maybe you knew you couldn't do it, but you thought you could fight through, even though deep down you knew better, and now your confidence is rocked. I thought I could do it, and now I couldn't do it. Maybe I can't do what's next. This isn't how you build a better athlete. All right, so just be honest with yourself. Can you do it all? And that means what is scheduled. Because guess what? If you can't, play with the schedule, adjust the schedule. And maybe it is just shuffling things around in a slightly different way. Now, guess what? I can do it all. It could be adjusting where the duration on some days goes down, and maybe it picks up on a different day, or maybe you're just not running on certain days as a result of everything that you've got going on. Remember the first thing I told you, life, work, weather, other people, all of these things, you put it together in like this big blender, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. By the way, based off a show that just ended, I'm not going to tell you which show, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Why would you ever make a drink in a blender when there's already stuff that's like 14 hours old in the blender? You'd wash it out first. You wouldn't just be like, you know what, I'll just put stuff on top of the crud at the bottom of the blender and then make my drink. No, you wouldn't. It's disgusting. No one would do that. Nobody. So that was like one of the few parts in a show I just watched where I was like, nope. Not happening. No one, especially when it's like white and creamy and like, come on. Oh my God, it looks like cat vomit. No one's going to put their ingredients in a blender on top of cat vomit and then make their drink and drink it. All right, that's my ramble. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to say about that. And it seems like a weird thing to end on, but honestly, like, I've given you what you need to schedule your runs in a given week. I've given you the adjustments to think about, the considerations to take into account to schedule your runs. And I know it's weird to bring up cat vomit at the end of the podcast, but I did it. And you know what? I don't think in 97 episodes, and I think there've been 2 bonus episodes, so it would be like 99 episodes, although I only count the non-special episodes as episodes. So there's 97, technically 99. The point is, out of all the episodes, I've never brought up cat vomit, and I did today. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of nice to know that I brought up cat vomit before the 100th episode, and now I'm saying cat vomit way too much. So we're going to sign off, and by we, I mean me, and I just want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank everyone for supporting the podcast. I want to thank everyone for sharing the podcast, rating and reviewing it, and just being a part of this awesome community. So thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And I'll meet you on that next starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you haven't already subscribed or set yourself as a follower to the podcast, I really hope you would. And make sure you check out the show notes, because in those show notes, you're going to find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter and all the social media sites I'm on, like Instagram and Threads and Cameo and Blue Sky and nope, not on that one anymore. So all the ones I am on, you're going to find it in the show notes, so check that out as well. And as always, thank you again for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast. Until next time, you keep taking care of yourself and each other.